Howdy, this is Mackenzie Franklin from SideGame LLC here in Colorado Springs, Colorado. And today we're going to be talking about my top 10 one-pawn board games. Now, what does this mean? Well, this means that you have one piece that usually represents you and you move it to a space and then you take some form of action. So it's a very simple formula, but it harkens back to classic board games where you've got your piece, you move it around, you interact with the board. And I really like this style of game. I find it very fun, kind of controlling your character and upgrading them and seeing how they progress throughout the journey. Now that being said, let's go ahead and get started with the list. Number 10 is going to be Vindication. Now, Vindication has you playing as a scumbag who washes up on the shore of an island, and it's your job to do your best to reclaim your honor and become vindicated by defeating monsters, gaining attributes and traits, as well as getting powerful spells and artifacts and abilities. You'll have a quest that you'll be following, but the gameplay is very straightforward. On your turn, you get to do three things. You move your character, you activate a tile you're next to, and then you activate a companion that's with you. And that's it. That's the gameplay loop. It's very straightforward, very simple, and I like how you're interacting on this island. At the start of the game, you're going to be moving from these vertices of these different areas. You'll be moving around, and as you hit locations, if they're empty, you'll reveal new tiles, and so the map kind of gets built as you play, which is pretty fun. So you wash up on the shore, and you're not sure how each game is going to go. Now, my favorite part about Vindication here has to be the magic cards. I think they are extremely powerful, and they add additional bonus actions you can take on your turn. So the way it works is you visit the Arcane Tower, and then you can take as much of your influence as you want, put it on these cards, and then you can use them usually up to 3 times. And then if you go back to the Arcane Tower, not only do you get a new artifact, but you can recharge all the artifacts that you have. Not gonna lie, it's kind of insane. This is the strategy that usually dominates and ends up winning, is having a couple of these relics, and it's pretty dang powerful, but I think it's so much fun to kind of see and use the powers of these artifacts, and based on the expansions you're using, see how they interact. So that's Vindication, my number 10. My number 9 is going to go to the game Escape Plan. Escape Plan has you playing as a criminal, and it's your job to get all of the money that you've stored around the city and then escape the city with that money. Now you do this by moving around these large tiles, and each of these tiles is going to have some usually guards, police officers, SWAT teams of some sort, and it's your job to evade them using your connections in the city. So the turn is very simple. You'll move around, and then you'll use the action on wherever you end up landing. And these actions can be something like the hospital here, where you're going to heal, or it can be one of your safe houses, and you can pull out some cash from there or something like that. So you're going to be going around and doing your best to manage kind of your inventory, whether it be with your assistants or with the different items that you can use to mitigate those potential disasters. Now, my favorite part about this game has to be the different items that you can pick up. I love that there's a lot of customization when you go from place to place, and a lot of the items offer some cool, unique abilities. For example, if you go to the convenience store here, you can pick up some gas masks and whatnot. They can stop different types of guards from messing with you, or you can even pick up these gas cans so that you can move extra spaces on your turn. I think it's just a lot of fun. There's a lot of neat little thematic things, but keep in mind, every time that you pay money for one of these things, the money is the victory points, and also, once you become the last person on the board, you have to spend a certain amount of money to actually escape. So if you're spending all your money on these special abilities, you might have to find money elsewhere in order to actually leave the place. So I really like this system, and I think it's a blast to play. That's Escape Plan, my number 9. My number 8 is going to go to the game Shadow Kingdoms of Valeria. And this is the Valeria series, but instead of playing the heroes, you are playing as the bad guys. And it's your job to gather armies and conduct schemes and plans against the good guys. Now you're going to be doing this in the form of dice drafting. You're going to take your character, move to a spot, and in that spot, you're going to take one of the dice in that location. And those dice you're going to take into kind of your horde, your army. So each of the different spaces allows you to do different things, whether it be get some magic, increase the amount of money you have, buy new special power cards, or you can reclaim your character back to your board and place him into your base camp to go out on one of these quests. And the quests are really fun, as every time you complete one, not only do you score points, but you also get to upgrade your character's player board. And that's my favorite part of this game. I love the individual player boards. They have these little discs on them, and every time that you complete a contract, you'll take one of those discs off, get a bonus over on this little map over here, and then you'll also get a new ability unlocked, whether it be being able to increase your strength, whether it be being able to hold more item cards, whether it be have cool new bonus actions or hold extra dice. There's lots of different paths that you can take, and I think that all of them are viable, which is pretty dang awesome for a game that's this straightforward, but this open to a great time. So that's my number 8, Shadow Kingdoms of Valeria. Now my number 7 is going to go to the game Tidal Blades Heroes of the Reef. This is the first in the series of Tidal Blades, and it has you playing as a champion, doing your best to show off to the judge that you can be the next protector of the reef. And you're going to do that by doing a worker placement style game. And this one kind of skirts around my kind of stipulations for this list because yes, it's a worker placement game where you have multiple workers, but it's all the same person. You have these little discs that are going to go under your worker, and every time you move it, you leave one of your discs behind. So you are technically moving this one piece around, but every time you visit a location, not only do you get to use the location ability, but also you get the space of whatever you land on. So if you come down here to the Droska ring, not only will you get to maybe refresh dice or get some shells, but you also get to buy one of these market cards. And then to top it off, you also get to participate in a challenge. And these challenges are going to have you rolling dice and using your different attributes to try to match these symbols to those challenge cards. Now my favorite part about this game are actually the stunt cards. There's one of the challenges in particular that's going to be using, one of the cards in particular that's going to be using the spirit stat here. And however high your spirit is, that's how powerful these stunt cards become. So I really like that. The spirit on its own does nothing, but I really like how every time you play those stunt cards, your spirit is actually going to come into a factor there, and those powerful stunt cards are really fun and really interesting. I really like how it kind of changes the dynamics of the game and offers you a new venue to kind of upgrade your characters. So I really like this one. That's Tidal Blades, my number 7. My number 6 goes to the game The Gallerist. This has you playing as an art gallery owner. It's your job to find new artists, support them, promote them, and then show off and showcase their artwork and potentially make lots and lots of money. And that's the whole point about this game, is being able to kind of chain actions back and forth to promote and sell art. Very fascinating game, very great theme, and it's done so well here, and the system is very straightforward. You take your pawn, and there's 4 actions that you can go to, and you move there and you take the action. If somebody's already there, you kick them out, but you have the potential of getting them extra actions. So you have to kind of weigh your options here as to when is the best time to go to a different space. I really like this system. I think it makes a lot of sense. Now my favorite part about this system has to be the contract cards and the executive actions. Every time you're playing, you're going to be picking up contracts that you can fulfill, and they require certain paintings. And you can see here in the corner here, when you complete the painting, you'll flip it over, and based on who you sell it to, it'll give you a spot where you can kind of put a mini worker for a bonus action on your turn. And those mini workers, your assistants here, they are stuck there until you get a new one to replace it. And I think this is a great system. It kind of allows you to really make some chains off of what you're doing, and it's going to encourage you to sell and gain new painting contracts. It just is a really good system, and everything just kind of clicks here. It really makes sense. I really enjoy this game. That's The Gallerist, my number 6. My number 5 goes to Heaven and Ale. Heaven and Ale is a game where you're going to be making all sorts of ingredients, and you're trying to harvest as many of these ingredients as possible, and you're doing that by taking tiles. And the tiles come from this large board. On your turn, you're going to be taking your pawn, moving it across the path as far as you'd like, and taking and potentially buying all of the tiles that are in this area that you land. Now, when you buy tiles, you either decide to put it on your sunny side, which will cost you twice as much as whatever the tile is. If you take a 5, it's going to cost you $10, and those score points. If you put it on the right side, though, it's cost just whatever it says, and those score money. So you have this interesting choice whenever you take a tile as to whether you're going to use it for points or use it for cash. And I think that's just so cool right off the bat. But here's the twist. At the very end of the game, you will score based on your lowest ingredients. You have to get a nice mix of everything, so you're doing your best to try to balance all of these factors. It's such a great system, and I love this path mechanism because once you get to the end of the path, you're done, and I think that's so well done. Now, my favorite part about this game is actually how you trigger the scoring. As you can see on the right side here, each of these boards are only going to have a couple of options to score. You can only score 10 different ways in the game, and once you score, you can no longer score that, and I think that's so fascinating. For example, if I score all my water tiles, yes, I'll get my $5 because it's on this dark side, but now I can never score my water through using that ability again. I'll have to find other ways to trigger that effect. And I think that's just such a great decision, such a great choice. But you're also incentivized to score because if you're able to get 2 of these scoring potentials next to each other completed, then you'll get to play a bonus card from your hand and get a powerful effect. And so you were wanting to earlier be able to do these scoring options, but it can potentially put you in a bad spot later. And then on top of that, the scoring is limited because they're triggered by these purple discs, and just like the tiles, it's first come, first serve. So I really like this system, I really like the tension, and I love the tough choices that you gotta make here. This is a great one that I really like. This is Heaven and Ale, my number 5. My number 4 is going to go to the game Le Havre, and this is a fantastic game with lots of emphasis on resource accumulation, as you see in lots of other games designed by Uwe Rosenberg. Now, the game is simple. On your turn, you are either going to take a pile of goods that have collected on their appropriate stacks, or you are going to move your worker and take an action. Now, that's the first kind of way that you're going to be moving and taking an action, because you only have one person, you move it, you do the action on wherever you go. But every turn, you're going to be moving your little boat here, and whenever you move your boat, it's going to land on a space and it's going to produce those resources into the different depots. And so every time you move your character, you increase the size of one of those depots. So after you move, you generate some resources, and then you decide which you're going to take. Are you going to move your worker and activate a building, or are you going to grab all of the gear that you can and then do the best that you can with those new resources? So I really like this decision here. Now, my favorite part about this game is actually just that resource accumulation. I love the way that just everything ramps up over time. And I love how at the start of the game, you could be looking at clay and thinking to yourself, one clay is really good. I need that right now to build a building. But then in the late game, you might look at a pile of clay and there's maybe 20 there, and you just think, no, I don't got time to get that 20 clay. It's not worth it. And I think that's just so cool. I love how the value of these goods changes over time. And I love just, it's a floating market that everybody's able to produce on. And I just really enjoy that concept. This really takes that resource accumulation to the max and has you thinking constantly about, oh my gosh, there's so many good decisions to take, and which big pile of stuff do I take? And I love that. I love everything about this one. It's a great experience. That is Le Havre, my number 4. My number 3 goes to the game Glenmore 2 Chronicles. Fantastic game of building your Scottish clan's territory by taking tiles in any fashion you see fit. And the best part is whenever you take a tile, it's going to trigger and activate the abilities of all the tiles around it. Now on your turn, you're going to take your pawn and you'll move it to any tile that you'd like. And when you do, you take that tile and put it into your area. And as I said, you're going to trigger all the effects around that. And I really like this mechanism. It's similar to the one that's in Heaven and Ale. You're going to be moving your character. But this one, it goes on basically forever until the end of the game comes out. And so you have some big choices when you're taking these tiles, because after each of those tile stacks runs out, A, B, C, and D, you're going to be triggering a scoring. So there's some big incentives to moving on the different paths, and there's also even bigger incentives on when and why you want to activate specific scoring. I really like the system, and I think the tile taking system is really well done. Now, my favorite part about Glenmore 2, there's actually 2 things that I really like. The first thing is just that tile placement. I find that so satisfying, taking these tiles and organizing them around you. You trigger all of the abilities of the tile that you place and the ones around it, and I think that's so good because it's allowing you to set up these trickling combos that just feel so satisfying. The other thing that I really love about this game are the Chronicles themselves. They're these little sets of expansions that you're going to be getting, and each of them adds a new way to play the game. And usually they're very minor, but there are some that are a lot bigger, and they really open up the design space for the game. I think it's so fun. I think it's so cool. And as you play, you can mix and match and really make this game whatever you want it to be, and I find that super awesome. This is a game that I keep on going back to, and I'm having such a blast with. Oh, Glenmore 2 Chronicles. That's my number 3. My number 2 goes to the game Great Western Trail. Now this is an Alexander Pfister design, and he does this mechanism of move a character, activate the space you move to extremely well. And this is shown very well in Great Western Trail. The whole purpose of this game is you are cattle ranchers, and you're taking all of your cattle, trying to get a whole nice differentiated herd, and then shooting them to different cities and making some big sales by having different colored cows. Now the game system is so straightforward. On your turn, you move your little cowboy here. These are not included, but they're pretty cute. I want to show them off here. Thank you so much, Victor Son Franzowicz. So I think that these are just really adorable. But you move your little cowboy here, you go to a tile, and then you trigger the effect on the tile. And it's very straightforward. If it's your tile, you can use it, or if it's neutral. But if it's somebody else's, you get what's called an auxiliary action. You get to do kind of a minor action, and then you draw back up to your hand size. And that's it. That's the game. You move, you do the action, then you draw back up. And that's so satisfying because these actions, you keep on doing them over and over again. The game is fast and quick and well paced, and you get to really customize this board because as you can see, and my favorite part about this game is the way that the board is created. The board starts off completely empty except for the neutral buildings, but every time you decide to build buildings, you'll put one onto the board and becomes a new space. The trail, the Great Western Trail, becomes longer, and it's customized based on how you want to make it. The buildings are double-sided, so you can pick and choose which type of buildings you want to build, and you could really mix and match it and see what kind of combinations come up. And I think that is so interesting and so fun. I also like the idea that you can upgrade existing buildings if you have a spot that you really want, and then some of these buildings even have tolls, so you can set up little toll booths for all the other players, so that means that they might want to go into the other areas. And the last thing to top off this movement and the board itself is that you can actually put your buildings into hazardous areas, so it's harder to get to, and you may have to get a bunch of negatives to get there, but if you do end up getting to your tile, you're going to get an additional bonus on top of everything else. And I think that's just such a cool system. I love how the card management is employed using the deck building system. I think it makes a lot of sense. I love how the different cows trigger the different abilities, so you maybe culling your deck isn't the best idea if you're trying to get specific colors and trying to use them all, but I just think that this system is so solid and it's so fun. It's great to play, great fun. I love the customization. I love the building of the board. Fantastic game. That's my number 2, Great Western Trail. But my number 1 is another Alexander Pfister design, and this is Maracaibo. Probably my favorite Euro game ever. It's just one that I'm having an absolute blast with. The expansion is on its way, but let's talk about Maracaibo. Maracaibo has you playing as Caribbean mercenaries, and it's your job to live your life in the Caribbean. Do your best, obtain wealth, obtain fame, obtain glory as you are using the influence that you have to really take advantage of all of the people around you and do the best for you and your crew. So you're going to be taking your ship here, and every time you go, you'll be taking your ship, and you can move 1 to 7 spaces. That's a lot of movement. That's a lot of options, and I love that. As soon as you move, you get to take an action based on how many spaces you went or based on where you landed. If you land on one of these cities, you can trade with them and upgrade your ship and then activate that ability. If you go to a village, you can activate what are called village actions, where you just get to do kind of some standard actions, or as you play, you can play these cards that will give you additional actions that you can actually use at villages. And I love that. I think that the turn flow is so straightforward. You move, you activate the effect, and then you draw back up, and it just makes so much sense. But my favorite part about this game have to be the cards themselves. I love the way that it works, where not only are you building cards that may give you passive effects, but you're also building cards that are potentially characters that you can visit on the board. For example, this character here, if you visit them, you can actually, as a space, you'll put that character on the board, and every time you visit location 9, you can go visit your explorer. He'll give you some points and have you go on an expedition. Or you can build some other characters that can help you out, and this person says when you take an action, you can discard a couple of maps in order to go on an explorer, and you can do that at any village. This person's just going to consistently help you out, and I love that it's up to you how you want to craft your experience, but everything fits into this simple action structure. I love this system. It makes so much sense, and it's so fun to go on an adventure on the 7 seas here, to sail through the Caribbean, to make all the trade goods you can, and then to hopefully build up this wonderful tableau of cards in front of you and just have a great experience. And to top it all off, there's this amazing narrative story that's just so much icing on the cake that's going to casually introduce new concepts to the game. It may add new tiles, new cities, it may add just small little events here and there that happen, it may add new cards to the deck. I'm so excited to see what else is in store for Maracaibo. This is one that I just cannot get enough of. Amazing game, fantastic experience, and one that I just want to see more of. So it's absolutely wonderful. If you have not played this, please do yourself a favor, go pick up Maracaibo and give it a try. But that's my number 1, Maracaibo. And that's my list. Those are my top 10 one-pawn board games. Those are the games that I always am super excited to give a try, and it really makes me feel like I'm in control. I'm moving myself around. I'm having a great time interacting with the board as my character, as my person. And it just feels so satisfying to see how this style of game develops. What are your favorite one-pawn board games? What do you think I missed in this category? What do you think belongs in this category? I'd love to hear if you agree with any of my choices, or if you have any that I forgot to mention here. But thank you so much for watching SideGame Strong.